Rejoice! One of Emmerdale's most beloved characters, Mandy Dingle, Lisa Riley, has staged a grand return to the ITV soap. We last saw Mandy in the village in December, when she explained that she was going on a brief trip to Donegal. Her cousin Tina, Samantha Power, was on remand, and she was asked to help look after her children to stop them going into care. She's since made a number of appearances via video call, though has been largely kept in the dark about the various dramatic developments at home. Riley's absence was, of course, to facilitate her appearance on the latest series of I'm a Celebrity. Get Me Out of Here. The soap star finished in 5th place, behind rapper H, EastEnders favourite Shona McGarty, reality TV's Tom Reed-Wilson, and social media personality Angry Ginge. Mandy pulled down Main Street in her taxi and spotted a police presence outside of Tennant House, and husband Paddy, Dominic Brunt, being carted off in a blaze of blue lights. As viewers know, his dad Bear Wolf, Joshua Richards, had confessed to killing Ray Walters, Joe Absalom, though has attempted to keep Paddy and Dylan Penders's Fred Kettle name out of the equation, given they were present at the time of the murder. However, becoming increasingly confused, Bear began to make contradictory statements. Paddy attempted to interrupt and support his dad's story, leading to tough DS Walsh, Amanda Ryan, to suggest that he might be involved. There was also one huge hole in the story: the fact that a seemingly fragile Bear managed to move Ray's body alone. Later, after recalling the day's events to Mandy, Marlon Dingle, Mark Charnock, and Rona Goskirk, Zoe Henry, both Paddy and Dylan were summoned to attend further interviews at the station, as Bear unintentionally incriminated them both, after months away in Donegal, helping cousin Tina Dingle care for her children while she awaited trial. Mandy had finally returned to Emmerdale. She'd promised it would be a short trip, but as always in the Dales, life refused to stay quiet long enough for her to make it back sooner. Though she'd appeared occasionally on video calls, she had been blissfully unaware of just how dramatically things had unravelled at home. Until now. As Mandy's taxi slowed near Tennant House, her smile faltered. Blue lights flashed, police cars lined the road. Neighbours stood in hushed clusters, and at the centre of it all, her husband, Paddy Kirk, being escorted into a police car. What the hell's going on? Mandy barely remembered paying the driver. She stumbled from the taxi, suitcase abandoned, heels splashing through puddles as she ran toward the chaos. "Oi! That's my husband," she shouted. But the police vehicle doors slammed shut. Inside, Paddy looked pale, defeated. His eyes met Mandy's for a split second, apologetic, terrified. Then he was gone. Mandy stood frozen, the cold finally seeping into her bones. She'd been picturing a warm reunion, arms wrapped around each other, a celebratory drink at the Woolpack. Instead, she'd walked straight into a nightmare. Bear's confession inside Tennant House. The truth began to spill out. Bear Wolf had confessed to killing Ray Walters. The name alone sent a chill through Mandy. Ray, the man whose presence had cast such a dark shadow over so many lives. Bear had told police he acted alone, that he'd killed Ray in a fit of rage, that Paddy and young Dylan Penders were innocent. But something wasn't adding up. As Mandy listened to the details from Marlon Dingle and Rona Goskirk, her stomach twisted tighter with every word. Bear's story had holes. Big ones. For starters, how had a man in Bear's fragile physical state managed to move Ray's body alone? And worse still, during questioning, Bear had grown confused. Contradictory. At times he claimed Paddy tried to stop him. Other times he insisted Paddy wasn't there at all. It didn't take much for tough DS Walsh to start asking questions. Mandy's guilt while Mandy had been in Donegal, filming jungle trials and surviving on rice and beans. Her family had been surviving something far worse. And yes, she'd heard all about the public vote results. Finishing 5th behind rapper H, EastEnders favourite Shona McGarty, Tom Reed-Wilson and Angry Ginge. But that felt like another lifetime now. How had she missed this? Paddy had downplayed everything on their video calls. Claimed work was busy. Said Bear was fine, that he'd protected her from the truth. Now he was sitting in a police station interview room. Because Bear might have accidentally implicated him. The interview at the station, Paddy tried to stay calm. He'd attempted earlier to interrupt Bear's confession, to steady the narrative, to keep the facts straight. But instead, it had backfired. DS Walsh had fixed him with a steely stare. "Why are you so desperate to control your father's story, Mr. Kirk?" Paddy insisted he was just trying to support a confused old man. But the damage had been done. And when Dylan was also summoned for further questioning, panic truly set in. Had Bear unintentionally dragged them both into this? A fracturing mind back at Tennant House, Mandy confronted Bear. she wasn't subtle. "What exactly did you tell them?" she demanded. Bear looked smaller than she remembered. Not physically, he was still an imposing presence, but emotionally diminished. "I told them the truth," he insisted. But which version? Because as the days passed, Bear's recollection seemed to shift. Sometimes he spoke with clarity about the night Ray died. The anger, the confrontation, the blow. Other times he faltered. Paused. Contradicted himself. Mandy began to fear this wasn't just stress. Was Bear's mind betraying him? And if so, what would that mean for Paddy? Cracks in the story. Marlon and Rona tried to piece together the timeline. Ray had been alive when Paddy and Dylan arrived. There had been shouting. A struggle. But after that, everything blurred. If Bear truly had acted alone, he would have needed extraordinary strength to move the body. And if he hadn't, the police would want answers. Mandy steps into action. Mandy Dingle does not do passive. Within hours of Paddy's arrest, she was on the phone to solicitors, rallying the Dingles, demanding clarity. Her flamboyant exterior masked razor-sharp instincts. She knew something wasn't right, and she refused to let her husband become collateral damage. She visited Paddy at the station, her bravado softening the moment she saw him. He looked exhausted, haunted. "I tried to help him," Paddy whispered. "I just wanted to protect Dad." Mandy squeezed his hand. "And who's protecting you?" The real fear, the truth none of them wanted to admit, hung heavily in the air. What if Bear genuinely believed he acted alone? But didn't. Memory can be a fragile thing under trauma. What if Paddy had done something in the heat of the moment? What if Dylan had? And Bear, in his confusion and fierce protectiveness, had absorbed the blame into his own narrative. The police certainly weren't ruling anything out. A second summons, just when Mandy thought the worst had passed. A knock at the door changed everything. Paddy and Dylan were required back at the station. Further interviews. Further scrutiny. Bear's statements had shifted again. In one version, Paddy had tried to restrain Ray. In another, he'd been nowhere near him. The contradictions were stacking up, and DS Walsh was circling. Mandy's breaking point that night. Alone in the kitchen, Mandy finally let her guard drop. Tears fell quietly onto the table. She'd survived jungle trials, public votes, media scrutiny, but this was her family, and the thought that Bear, through confusion or desperation, might have unintentionally incriminated Paddy and Dylan was unbearable. She wiped her eyes. Enough crying. Tomorrow, she would fight. The bigger question as the week closed, one haunting possibility loomed. What if Bear's confession isn't the whole truth? What if he's shielding someone, or worse? What if none of them fully remember what really happened that night? Ray Walters may be dead, but the truth about his murder is very much alive. And as Mandy Dingle plants her heels firmly back on Emmerdale soil, one thing is certain. She won't rest until her family is safe, even if uncovering the truth tears them apart. Because in the Dales, loyalty runs deep. But secrets?